Hello everyone, this is my first video posted on YouTube. I just created that channel a few days ago and trying to share something basic other than software operation. Because I'm thinking for 3D rendering, the mind is more important. It was the mind to guide how to use your software, how to use those functions. For example, let's say we are learning how to be a photographer. So the first thing we need to learn is how to play around a camera. Once you finish learning all the features, all the buttons and functions of one camera, and then you start learning how to be a photographer, how to take a shot, like a layout, and how to composite, how to setting up your lighting, and even how to do some retouching. So back to our 3D rendering. Learning how to use those software or render engine is the first thing we need to learn. After that, we can start learning how to be a 3D renderer. So for many of us, especially for some new to this industry, I think many of us will have a problem, which is, for example, let's say that image. Maybe your rendering once was commented as too flat. So many people have this problem. Why my rendering is so flat? What happened? This image, this rendering, I think for many of us will think it's too flat. Yes, it's less of contrast. You can't see many, so you can't see a balanced bright and shadows in this rendering. And I'll let you know what happened and how to fix it later. But first, we need to figure out this image is what we thought is too flat. And then another example. That's another one. Let's see this statue. It looks like just a 2D outline. It doesn't have a 3D dimension in this certain object because it doesn't have brightness and shadows. You can't tell which part is facing to the light and which part is in the shadows. So that's why we say that object is too flat. It's just like 2D. And that image, it looks much better. For an untrained eyes, it looks good. But if we take a look, we can't see the depth or the distance between those two objects. This sofa definitely is about roughly maybe 1.2 meters in front of this chair. But from here, we can't see that depth. And the cushions as well. Those two cushions. Feels like it doesn't have a distance between the back of the chair and those cushions. It's like the cushions just stick on the chair. So that's what we say the image is too flat. Because our rendering is a 2D. Rendering is all 2D, it's not 3D. Although we create that in a 3D software, but in rendering, we're back to 2D. But we need to introduce the third dimension to make our rendering has depth, back to 3D. And that third dimension is the light. So we use light to create the third dimension. Let me show you one simple example. This is a cylinder. Let me make it simple. And then I'll draw another plane. Make it 1 and 1, so keep it simple. Let's put them next to each other and compare them. From now, what we see is just 2D. We can say those two shapes are the same. They're just a rectangular. But once I turn on the shading, the third dimension, which is a light, was introduced. So we see dark and light. That's why we can tell, okay, those two objects are not the same. One is just simple plane, and the other one is a cylinder. So that's a very simple example to show you how light works in our 2D rendering. Light gives dimension and define the shape of the object. That's too simple, so I'll use another one to let you have a clearly concept what is flat and how to fix it and what happened. Before that, I'm not sure how many persons have experiences of the sketching. If you have learned Sketch, you would remember we start learning sketching from white plaster, or white plaster, because on white surface we can clearly figure out the brightness and the darkness, the light and shadows, and then we go into the real life, the real person, real object, still life. That's why in our rendering, I suggest everyone to do the lighting before material, because in our general material, like the default standard material, let's say V-Ray default standard material, if we do this all in this material, we can figure out the light and shadow clearly without any diffuse map or any glossiness, because once we have the glossiness and diffuse map on, those light and shadow can't be clearly seen. Okay, let me back to this simple example, which is how to lit a box. This is just very simple scene. You just have a box with a plane. Let's make it just easier. And now I'll use a dome light to lit it. In my real job, I never use dome light unless I would use HDRI. I'll let you know the reason in the future, but not covered in this lesson. Okay, let's just render it and see what happened. For rendering, I'm using progressing. Okay. Now we render a very simple box with a very simple dome light. Nothing special. Let me just wait a minute, let the rendering to be more clearly so we can see what happened. Alright. Let me save it. and back to Photoshop. This is our box. It's very flat. Everyone can see that. So we need to figure out what is flat. How did it happen? For a simple box, we need to have some surfaces. If you have any experience with sketching, you will see that that surface is not quite clear. You can't tell the surface with the background. Looks like the surface and the background is the same plane. So we need to pull this surface out from the background to make the box read as a box. So we need to change the brightness for this top surface. Okay, once I done this, you can tell this box is more solid. It looks like a real box, but still not that good. We need to separate those two objects, those two surfaces as well. So I need to do another curve. Maybe this time I'll make it a bit darker. Okay, by doing those two curves, now we can see a box lit by a light resource from somewhere around that part, 45 degrees, cast it on that top surface and this front surface, and then that's the dark side. Now, so that's what we say a rendering is too flat, and we fix it so you can see the difference. Back to 3D. How are we gonna do this? How are we gonna resolve this problem in rendering? We need another light. Just like before, just like what we did in Photoshop. We create this light in the same roughly location. We said something somewhere about here. It's about there. Point to the top surface. Yeah, somewhere here. Right, let's re-render again. Right. So that's the top part is the lightest, and then that face is the darkest. That's the mid-gray. It's just like what we did in Photoshop. So without that lighting, we just render a flat image, and with that lighting, we introduce the 3 dimension, which is the light. That's how we fix that problem with just one light. And that light defines 3 different gray color for this box. Okay, this is a very simple example to show what is flat and why did how did it happen. Now let's back to this rendering. So once you understand what is flat, now you can tell that object is not that clear. We can't separate those two surfaces. If the lighting coming from the top, from the ceiling, or coming from the window, we can see maybe the top surface is the brightest. It should be lighter than that surface. and then we can see on the sofa if the lighting coming from that direction. Maybe we can see some lighter part around that face on the cushion, but not quite clear now. So we can add another lighting, cast it on those cushions. And for that surface, we can use another lighting, maybe above the ceiling, cast it on that surface. Or we can use another general light just above the window to give the whole scene, the whole space, a strong contrast, to figure out those surfaces, to separate them. Okay, that's my first video. It's too simple. It's very simple, but it's very important. Even in the future, you are doing some complicated surfaces. That's the essence. You are using this method to set up your lighting, to make contrast, to figure out, to define your objects. For the next video, I'll talk about something about the shadows. I think a lot of persons are trying to figure out some the softness of the shadows and the light or the dark or the light, how to control the color, how to control the sharpness, and how to control the soft and the harsh lighting. So that's what I will cover in the next video. Okay, thank you.